Bluestars Prophecy by Aaron Hunter. Today I'll be reading the prologue. However it's pronounced. Bluestars stood to a halt at the top of the slope. The stench of dogs hit her throat. Below, the fern shook as dark shapes swarmed through the gully. Fireheart's orange pelt flashed like flame through the greenery. He was keeping a good distance between himself and the pack, but the lead dog was breaking away and closing fast on the Clan deputy. No, not that one. You cannot use him as prey. Bluestar flung herself down the slope, gulping air, muscles burning. She weaved around the trees, her paws skating on the leafy forest floor. She hurtled through a swath of ferns, running blind as the leaves licked her face. The gorge was close by. She could hear the river crashing between the sheer gray walls. Would Fireheart really be able to lure the dog pack over the edge? What if the pack's leader caught him first? She erupted from the back and stabbed and scrabbled to a stop in a clearing at the edge of the cliff. Leaves sprayed into the chasm as her paws slipped and slid. Oh, Starclan, no! Fireheart was dangling from the glistening jaws of a huge dog. The ThunderClan deputy struggled, spitting with fury. The dog shook him, its eyes shining with triumph, but its clumsy paws were skittering dangerously close to the edge of the gorge. I will not let you destroy my clan, Bluestar roared. She flung herself at Fireheart's tormentor, slamming headfirst into its flank. The dog dropped to Fireheart and spun around in surprise. Bluestar crouched and unsheathed her claws. Blood roared in her ears, but she felt no fear. She had not felt this alive for moons. She lashed out at the dog's muzzle, but her claws raked empty air. The dog was sliding away from her. The ground beneath its hind legs was crumbling. Shards of stone showered down the steep face of the gorge as the dog's paws scrabbled to get a grip. But the blunt claws were slithering on the leaf-strewn forest floor as its haunches dragged its hind legs backwards over the cliff. The pack thundered closer. Bluestar! Fireheart warned. But Bluestar didn't take her eyes from the pack leader. She was locked in its panicked daze as dogs began to crash through the bracken behind her. The pack was upon them. Bluestar dug her claw into the soft earth as the air suddenly soared with fear. The lunging dogs had seen the gorge, then their howls turned to yelps as they skidded at its edge. Bluestar held her ground as a desperate yowl echoed down the chasm. The first dog had fallen. Its body thumped against the cliff. And there was a moment of quiet before she heard it splash into the roaring water below. Bluestar narrowed her eyes, still fixed on the pack leader. You should have never threatened ThunderClan, she hissed. Suddenly the dog stretched its head forward and grasped her foreleg in its jaws. She felt the ground slide beneath her as the dog dragged her with it over the edge. Wind roared around her, blasting her pelt as she fell. The river swirled around and foamed below. She scrabbled desperately against the cold, wet air and struggled free of the dog, just a moment before she hit the water. The freezing river knocked the breath from her body. Blind, she struggled against the current, fighting her way toward air, her heart gripped by panic. Goosefeather's prophecy burned in her mind. Water will destroy you. Her thick fur, heavy with water, dragged her down. The river tumbled all around her. She did not know why. which way was up. Her lungs screamed for air. Terror scorched through her. She was going to drown. There in the foaming waters of the gorge. Don't give up, a meow sounded clear and familiar. Through the roar of the water. Okay. The father of her kids was murmuring in her ear. It's like running through the forest. Let your paws do the work. Raise your chin. Let the water carry you up. His voice seemed to lift her, calming her panic, and she found that her paws were churning steadily through the water. Her heart, tight with pain, slowed as she strained to raise her chin, until at last the wind whipped her face. Coughing and gagging, she snatched a gulp of air. That's the way, Oakheart whispered in her ear. The voice sounded so gentle, so welcoming. Perhaps she should just let the river sweep her away into the softness of the fur. Bluestars, swim! Head for the bank! Oakheart's mew was sharp now. Our kids are waiting. Our kids! The thought of them hit her like a lightning bolt. You can't leave them without saying goodbye. Energy surged through Bluestars. She began to fight once more. A dark shape buffeted her, knocking her underwater again. But she struggled to the surface, spluttering as water filled her mouth and caught in her throat. The rolling body of a dog tumbled past her and was swept downstream. If a dog can't fight this current, how can I? The treetops blurred overhead as the river swirled her along. You can do it, Oakheart urged. Bluestar turned at the water, but her exhausted legs felt like sodden leaves, flailing uselessly. Suddenly, teeth grasped her scruff. Was Oakheart going to drag her to safety? Bluestar blinked water from her eyes, long enough to glimpse orange fur. Fireheart, a ThunderClan deputy, had gotten hold of her. Keep your head up, he growled through clenched jaws. Bluestar tried to help him, but her pelt was heavy, and her paws were too tired to fight the weight of the water. Firestar's teeth tore at her scruff as the water dragged her down. Then another body brushed hers. One of the dogs? More teeth bit her scruff. Paws clutched at her flanks, heaving her upward. She felt strong, gentle movement of cats around her. Was ThunderClan carrying her to its hunting grounds? Barely conscious, she let herself be dragged through the water until pebbles scraped her flank and she felt solid earth beneath her. Paws and teeth heaved her up the green shore and laid her on soft grass. Her chest felt as if it were packed with stones, making each breath a struggle. Her eyes stung, too filled with water to see. Bluestar? She recognized the new misty foot. What about Stonefer? Is he here too? We're both here. A strong paw pressed against her flank. Oakheart had been right. Their kids had been waiting for her. Bluestar fought to open her eyes. She could just make out the shape of Stonefer. His wide shoulders were silhouetted against the green canopy of trees. So much like his father. Misty Foot stood beside him, her sodden pelt clinging to her frame. Bluestar felt breath on her cheek. Is she okay? Came the voice of her daughter. Fireheart was leading in. Bluestar, it's Fireheart. You're all right now. You're safe. Bluestar hardly heard him. She was gazing at her kids. You saved me, she murmured. Don't try to talk, Misty Foot urged. But there's so much to say, Bluestar stretched her muzzle forward. I want to tell you something. I want to ask you a favor, to ask you to forgive me for sending you away. As she coughed, water bubbled out her lips. But she forced herself to keep going. Oakheart promised me Grape will be a good mother to you. She was, Stonefer meowed flatly. Bluestar flinched. I owe her so much. She wished he had more breath to explain. Oakheart, too, for mentioning you so well. Why hadn't she found a way to tell them this before? I watched you as you grew up, and I saw how much you had to give to the clan who adopted you. If I had made a different choice, you would have given all your strength to ThunderClan, she shuddered, struggling for air. Forgive me. She stared at her twin, and time seemed to halt as she watched Mrs. Hinton Stone first exchange an uncertain glance. Please, forgive me. She suffered a lot of pain for her choice. Fireheart pleaded for her. Please, forgive her. Stop it. Forgiveness would mean nothing. If it had to be dragged from him, she willed Fireheart to hold his tongue. Mistyfoot bent her head and licked Bluestar's cheek. We forgive you, Bluestar. We forgive you. Stoneforker echoed. Bluestar closed her eyes as the two kids began to lap at her drenched pelt. It was the first time she had shared tongues with them since the snowy day she had left them with Oakheart. There was no more need to cling to her last life. Firestar would kindle a new flame and blaze through the forest in her place. ThunderClan was safe. She closed her eyes and gave way to dizzying blackness.